My baby was due yesterday.
Ooh, okay.
My wife is currently 1 centimeters dilated.
What do we do
Ready?
then? One, two, and then clap on three.
Clap on four.
Oh, clap on one, though.
Oh my God.
2, 3, 4.
Welcome to Drummer Mamas. I'm Gemma Hill and I'm joined by my co-host Kira Chinia. We are talking to Will Daly today for part one of 2 episodes. Will runs a teaching studio in Essex, and at the time of this episode, he and his wife were about to become first-time parents. So what will being a dad mean for Will and his drum teaching studio? And as a self-employed musician, what plans or steps has he taken to cover his job in the weeks after the birth? We have an unusual take on parenthood with this before birth episode. Catch up with Will next week to find out how everything went post-baby. You can see Will Daly at the UK Drum Show on Saturday the 8th of October 2025 at 10:30am in the Evans Sound Advice Room for his practice pad party session.
Will Daly,
How you doing?
welcome on. You are about to become a father, literally in a matter of hours, days. How are you feeling?
That's a huge question, isn't it? I think I feel quite calm about the process. I understand what's about to happen, but still, it's a little daunting because obviously it's pretty life changing, and it's like I don't know, could happen tomorrow. Who knows? Supposed to happen yesterday. Not really. That was the due date. The due date was yesterday, and then we went for a check this morning, and there was a sweep, no broom involved, and the nurse was like, "Oh, I reckon you're about 1 centimeter dilated," but she was like, "If I hadn't have told you that, you would never have known." So we're at the beginning of the process of early pregnancy. So obviously, I'm here on a podcast.
Okay, how's Chloe?
She is so fine and so calm.
Oh,
I feel like bad because everybody just keeps on being like, "How's Chloe?" Chloe's my wife, by the way, just in case anyone wondered. Um, People keep on they just constantly ask, "How's Chloe?" And I'm like, literally fine. Like yesterday, I left her. She was sanding and painting a window frame. Today, I've left her. She was just doing some freelance work. She is very, very chill and has been very, very chill the whole pregnancy. Like we've been very, very lucky, and our pregnancy's been very smooth. So, yeah, it's all felt quite calm, to be honest, so far.
when did you know you wanted to make drums your career? And when did you know you wanted to be a dad?
Christ, we going big here from the off.
Yeah, don't mess around.
Sorry, first question. When did I want? When
To
did I
make,
know to make drums my living?
yes.
When I went and saw the Red Hot Chili Peppers at V Festival, and I got on my sister's friend's shoulders, John Bottomley. I was 13 and saw Chad Smith playing the drums, and I thought, that's it. That's this feeling right now. That is, I want somebody else to feel this way about how I feel about this right now. And yeah, but having said that, I didn't necessarily have a straightforward kind of. I then just decided to become a drummer because I feel like I'm quite different to a lot of other drummers who are educators, teachers, because I trained to be a teacher rather than doing the music school thing and then becoming a teacher. So I always wanted to play the drums, but my mum was concerned about what career that would give me, and so she was like, "You can totally like try and be a drummer, but please like have some sort of backup plan." And so she encouraged me to train to be a teacher as a backup plan to being a drummer, and I started teaching to play the drums when I was 16, just to like friends, and then you just kind of spiraled. So I've always taught drums, and then when I was training to be a teacher, I knew I did not want to work in a school, and I knew I didn't want to. I'm kind of quite. I'm always been very aware of. I'm a very emotional person. I'm a very hopefully joyful person, and I'm very in the moment. And if I don't feel that passionate about the thing I'm teaching, then it's so much more of a struggle, and I'm so much better at teaching something that I love to do. And so I got my degree, and at the end of my degree, there was a studio tour opening up because I also have a huge passion for film, called the Warner Brothers Studio Tour, The Making of Harry Potter. So I actually taught, and I went along to the studio tour. It hadn't opened yet, and it was for a different job. And I basically just loved Harry Potter, and I loved movies. And I can actually, sorry, this is a bit all over the place, kind of going back and forth, but I really remember saying to my mum, I either want to play the drums for a living, or I want a job where I can just talk about Harry Potter all day, every day. And I've done both of those jobs. So I went along for what they call a tour interactor. So those are the people that show people around the tour. And whilst I was there, they said, "Oh, like you've got like a thing going on with education. We have an education department that we're putting together. Would you be interested in coming along to interview for that?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, cool." And it was like went from being kind of a, £7 an hour job to like a fully salaried job. And I sort of just landed this job where I wrote the education program with my colleague Anne at the studio tour that I still teach now. And it was just like we were just two people, and I worked there for about 4.5 years. And I still taught drums after work and on like at the weekends, and still played in 2 or 3 bands at the same time. But that was kind of my main job, and it was absolutely amazing because it's like a working film studio. So you taught when schools and colleges would come to the studio tour, we would teach them about different areas of filmmaking based on the Harry Potter film. So it could be costume design, it could be camera angles, it could be mise en scène, it could be all these different areas of filmmaking. But on your lunch break, you would literally like go into the cafeteria and you like see Tom Cruise not on your lunch break. Or I had a wee next to Henry Cavill once, so I have pissed next to Superman. I didn't look, so I don't know. And it was a wild place to work, but I think I worked there for about 4.5 years, and between us, we taught something like 42,000 kids, which is a lot. Yeah, and there are only so many lessons that schools could book to come and do. And what was really interesting actually was that when I was doing it there, and I mean this humbly, I got very, very good at teaching those lessons because they're the same over and over again. I mean, I could still do the lessons now. We said them so many times. And it was quite an interesting thing of where I'd kind of come from playing the drums was such a passionate thing of being in a band. I never really, but I don't know, I just never really kind of opened my mind up that you could be a session player or anything like that. I just did it for the joy of it, and I loved the feeling it gave me, and any way I could make money from doing it was like kind of where I was coming from the whole time. But working at Warner Brothers was like, oh man, if you do the same thing like over and over and over again, you get like really good at it. And it was kind of weird because it was this sort of thing of like, if I just had done that with the drums, I would surely be like amazing at the drums. And I didn't really learn it from the way of being a musician. I kind of learned it from this other adventure. And then I attended the first ever 21 Drums drum camp, which was in Ireland with Mark Johnston, Mark Juliana, and Robert Sputsy Wright. And that really was, I guess, in a very long answer to your question, sorry. But that pretty really was the moment where I went to this thing and there were loads of other people a very similar age to me that were all in very, very different situations of how they were either working towards a career in the drums or had a career in the drums. And they weren't like famous drummers. They were just professional drummers or like at the start of the career. And I just thought like, I think maybe I could do this. And, I was really, really fortunate like to have people like, Mark Juliana and Mike Johnston, and, you just have one conversation with those sorts of guys, and you ask a couple of questions for their guidance, and they gave me the encouragement like, yeah, you can totally do it. It's fine. Like, and I did. And so I quit my job at Warner Brothers and started completely again. I still had like a very small handful of students, but nothing to live on. And then I started again, and then built up kind of a roster of students and gigs, and basically anything drum related that anyone will pay me to do. And that was 9 years ago, I think, or 8 years ago.
Yeah, you do. And so, when did you know you wanted to be a dad, or was that always something that was in you?
No, actually, I would say the opposite, to be honest. I don't think I did know that I think it took me a long time to feel like I was ready. And I still don't really think you ever kind of feel ready until, someone hands you the baby, and then it's like, you better be ready now. And I think, yeah, it's kind of one of those things where I guess we're so much younger for such a longer time now. When you talk, your parents' generation had children when they were so young. And, me and my sister, who's also just had a baby, will constantly joke about like how close we remember my mum like turning 40. And, as we kind of get closer and closer to that, we're like, oh God, we're at the same age that we can remember mum at. And we still are like, that's so weird. And so I think it's one of those things that I knew that we'd always want a family, but me and my wife Chloe, we were just very in love, and I think kind of like this is enough, like whatever happens, because you just don't know whether you can have children, and you don't know, like you just don't know. And what was nice is that we didn't have the pressure of like, well, we want, it's got to happen. It's, it didn't become everything. We were like, okay, we'll just see what happens. And if it happens, it happens. And if it doesn't, like, this is enough. We're enough for one another. And so it's kind of like, I guess it feels quite different in that way, because I don't feel like it was like, I need to have this family thing. I need to do this. It's more, to me, it's feeling more like, quite obviously a product of our love. Not that the baby's a product, that sounds terrible, but like it feels like it's already kind of part of the team in that sort of sense, and it's kind of come from that place rather than a place of kind of desperately wanting to be a father. But I grappled with it because we spoke about it for a long time, about like, when should we or shouldn't we? I don't know. We're really happy with how things are. Should we do this? I guess we'll kind of get into the mindset around it and that kind of thing, and trying to deal with that. But I had a Zoom call with Mark Juliana about a few things in my career, and one of them, I was just like, how did you know that you wanted to be a dad? Because that feels really alien to me, because I have such a different lifestyle to other people that I know, and I don't like how are you playing the drums and like also being a father? And I don't know if you've ever met that man. He spoke so just directly of just like, I just knew I wanted to be one. Like, it's cool. He's like, don't overthink it. Like, it's becomes a part of your world. And he's like, my problem is actually I couldn't find the right lady that felt the same way I did. It wasn't that he was like, I always knew I wanted to have a family. And he literally brought out an album called Family First. And so that was a really nice conversation of, trying to seek out kind of people that you respect that seemingly have their shit together, that you're then able to then, ask like, did you feel unsure? At first, I think I was kind of disappointed because he was so sure. He was just like, yeah, yeah, no, it's cool. Like, yeah, I just knew it happened. I was like, ah, crap. Like, I was hoping you'd tell me you were riddled with like uncertainty. But his clarity of like, it's just really great, Will, like, and was really lovely. And yeah, and there's been, plenty of other people that are not musicians, or, that you just talk to, that kind of give you that kind of that certainty. But like I say, I think the thing, it's where it comes from in terms of me and my wife and sort of what we have together, and it being, hopefully it's not here yet. Yeah, hopefully being, evidence of our love. Is that
That's
okay?
lovely that you had that conversation with him. That's so sweet. I'm really happy that you have felt able to talk to someone and ask those questions as well, because yeah, the idea of dads doing that is lovely.
Oh,
I wanted to ask about, sorry, pushing on
oh
to the
no, no,
next
go on,
one.
no. I was just gonna.
Leading up to the birth, is there anything that you have been worried about?
This is going to turn into a real council session, guys. Do you know what? I proper U-turned 9 months ago. I probably, it wasn't that long ago. I was me and Kira, or that was maybe even like 6 months ago. Me and Kira in Germany, and I spoke to Kira about it a little bit. I was like, I was very worried. I think probably weirdly for my wife's safety for some reason. That kind of, whatever that horrible kind of cave person thing that is, just like a real okay kind of feeling. I just had a real fear that something would go wrong at first. And I got to say, actually, I read a hypnobirthing book, and it really, really sorted me out, because I just realized how much I didn't understand behind the science of everything and how everything works, and I just took that time just to kind of get clued up on. And then it was amazing. Like, you guys are incredible. Like, what the female body can do, and the magic of it is magical. Like, it's so wild to me, like how your body can do so many different things, like the breastfeeding stuff, like when your baby is ill, and like it will give off like different things to like help like heal your baby. Like, literally could barely put a hi-hat in the right place on the start of this phone call. Do you know what I mean? We're just the worst. We're the worst. And yeah, it was, yeah, I had that initial worry was kind of one, I guess, just, yeah, for my wife's kind of just like, is everything going to be okay? And again, she was just so calm and just so like weird. We actually had like two miscarriages before, like very close together before we fell pregnant. So it took actually quite a long time for us to kind of acknowledge that this was actually happening, because we'd had two in a row, and it was a bit like, okay, yeah, sure, we're pregnant. Like, and it was a bit of a shame, really, in some ways initially, because you didn't have that joyful, because you couldn't tell anybody, because you were just like, well, if I tell you, I'm also going to have to tell you like some terrible news in like 4 weeks' time again, and so we held on to it for ages. But then it was kind of like, oh crap, we are actually having a baby. And yeah, I mean, honestly, sometimes well, very clearly have a lot of faith in my wife about how amazing she is, but it changes from day to day. There are some days where I feel very worried in terms of like, I just as a musician, and even though the majority of my income is made from drum teaching, still you work the weirdest hours compared to everybody else. Like, you don't, and so a lot of people that you meet, when they tell you things of like, oh, they have like how it is for them, it's like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, but I don't, I'm not, I haven't been at home for dinner on a work day for about 15 years. Like, like it's so it's so different. Like in terms of because I would teach after Warner Brothers. So even when I worked at Warner's, I would be going to someone's house and then teach. And then like I've been heating up my dinner in the microwave like since forever because otherwise everyone will be waiting for me to get home and have dinner at like 10 o'clock at night, and that's really hard, I think, to get your head around and like, well, what's this going to look like? And to be honest, I don't have the answer. So that side of it is still something that really worries me. And I fear like time is something, ironically on a drawing podcast, but time and making good use of your time. As I say, I'm so in the moment person, but I'm also quite an ambitious person, and so I have lots of ideas and I have lots of things I want to like, and because I can, it's sounding too cheesy, because I can dream it. It's like, oh, that could happen. When could I fit that in? What time? When could I do that? And but I'm also very in the moment. So that can be really good, but then it also means that like actually it's not great for like consistency of like, okay, I do this exact same thing every single time, like and I think particularly when you are a self-employed drummer, it's there's so many things that you're kind of responsible for, and especially in that modern day, I could do less, to be fair, like, and I could have maybe chose to go and maybe go and teach for somebody else or teach in a school or something like that. Maybe that would have made things easier for me. I don't know. I mean, to be fair, I'm not doing that, so that's not. I don't mean that. Somebody else might be like, yeah, give it a go, mate. So yeah, you get on. But but what I mean is, in terms of like when you're running a studio, you're as much like you're the person that's writing the curriculum. You're the person that's teaching the drums. You're the person that's cleaning the studio. You're the person that's putting the lighting rig up. You're the person setting up the camera. You're going to be the person who's talking to the camera. You're going to be the sound engineer. You're going to be like all these things that you have to be, as well as quite a lot of emotional support for a lot of young people every single day. And you have to be on all the time. All of that stuff is all in your head. And so when you then think about like, cool, and now there's an entirely new human that also deserves more than all of that attention and your love, it's hard not to think of all that stuff and be like, whoa, that sounds a bit overwhelming. As well as like, I'm very conscious that I want to be as supportive as I can for Chloe, and I don't want her to lose her, feel a lack of a loss of identity, and I want her, she's also a very creative person. She's a motion graphic designer, and so I want to make sure that she feels supported, and it feels like it's a team effort, and it's not cool, you just take care of that and I'm just going to do my thing, and I feel all of those things at once, and some days that is a bit scary, and I think it's probably more scary because I don't have the child. So again, the overthinking, the ambition is actually like, that's not all actually going to happen at once, but in your head it is happening all at once, and then I think it is, and again that's kind of why it goes back to like having a conversation with someone like a Mark Juliana, and obviously like I think Colette was saying like you don't really see it overtly with maybe musicians at first because you're sort of like, how's everyone doing it? How are people doing this? How are people doing this? And so it is actually really nice when somebody can just turn around and be like, oh, that's great, don't worry about it. It's good. That was a long ramble, wasn't it? I'm so sorry.
No, it's lovely to hear what you're thinking leading up to the birth, because we only know what we've been thinking. We can't, don't usually get the chance to speak to dads about that. It's quite a unique position.
Yeah.
You're right in front of experiencing the birth. So can you tell us how you've organized the next few weeks of your work with your teaching?
Yeah, so which like my mother-in-law has also texted Chloe saying like, could you have this baby because I'm so sick of everyone asking how you are. Because obviously when you teach like 40 people every week, every single parent's coming and going, how's Chloe? Like, how's it? Got no baby yet? You know. So initially, because of where it's kind of fallen in the year, and I teach a lot of students that are at school. So my initial thing to do is I'm going to have 2 weeks off from when the baby is born. So actually this week at the moment, everybody's on call to be like, your lesson might be on, it might be off. And I'm just texting every morning to say, we're good to go. See you at drums. But then I'm going to have 2 weeks off, and then I'm going to try to teach just like the last few kind of weeks of the school year. And then obviously then it'll be the 6 weeks holidays. So that will be, I'll have a smaller timetable anyway. But I will have a few like kind of obviously like wedding gigs and stuff like that. But that's kind of more manageable. So I'm still on the fence, to be honest, until the baby arrives, as to whether I'm going to do like 2-3 days of full teaching, or actually take advantage of it because I can spread the teaching out across the days, that I can then actually, be at home for the majority of the day, pop out, teach for 2 or 3 hours, come back home. But it is tough because we are both freelancers, so we don't have we only have a quite small maternity pay for Chloe. So like one of us has to keep on working for those initial kind of 10 months until we can put the baby into nursery, which is kind of is going to have to kind of be a part of it. And then that is also a very difficult thing. It's kind of the blessing in a nice way is that, but I think particularly when they're a baby, hopefully, obviously I'm not experienced this yet, but is that because I don't teach until later on in the afternoon, I'm going to be available to help in the morning and like before I go to work. But also we are very different in that I am a night owl and she is a morning person. But I can stay up later, with this, with the balance of sleep. Obviously, again, breastfeeding and all that kind of stuff is another thing that it's all the unknown, and you can have all the plans you want in the world, but we don't know how that's going to go either. So, so that's our kind of, it helps in that way, that it's kind of quite useful to be unconventional in that kind of way. But then the longer run, like in years to come, I've always kind of thought like, well, what do I do? Because if I want to take my kid to an extracurricular club, I am the extracurricular club to like all these other people. So we'll do this interview, and again, a year, years on, we'll see how it's going.
Do you feel any pressure to be the breadwinner or like the provider as a guy now you're about to become a dad?
No, I play the drums for a living, so. Next question. No, no. I mean, like Chloe has always been the breadwinner. She has, yeah. I mean, I joke, but that is the answer. She's always made more money than me. So, and that is quite that. I think we're fully aware that is going to be an interesting one as we kind of move on. I think what's really weird, obviously, that COVID really changed everything, because Chloe used to have to go to London every day.
Yeah.
And now she doesn't have to do that because she just works from home and only goes to London once a week. So, so I don't feel the pressure as such. I think what's different, because we're both two creative people, I almost feel like we kind of work in more of a creative currency than we necessarily do in a financial one. We both chose to do kind of creative careers. We're never gonna like have loads and loads of money. Like that's part of choosing the career that we have, like the careers that we have. But I think that in a very different way, it's that kind of creative muscle and that's so much a part of our identities of what we do and who we are. That's actually more important than, you know, I'm privileged to be able to say that because we earn enough money that we can take care of one another and the baby. But that is almost kind of, I think, probably more on both of our radars than anything else. And but yeah, I mean, that is kind of the answer. Is yeah, I don't make less money.
Going back to what you were talking about earlier with paternity, and as you're both freelancers, and so I don't live in the UK at the moment, but I think, as you said, it's 2 weeks for paternity leave, right? At the moment, that's
Uh,
covered.
I mean, I'm not getting any money at all, like nothing.
Okay.
So we've just saved money, and then Chloe, I feel like it's like 6 grand or something like that, roughly. I could be wrong. I don't know if I'm supposed to share that kind of information, but I have. Um, so it's not like but for not working for an entire year, that is not a lot of money for 3 people. But that's because we are both freelance, yeah, which is mad.
What are your career aspirations and have they changed since you've decided to start a family?
I was thinking you might ask this or something along these lines. I think what's quite strange is in those, like I was talking earlier, in those early years when I was just playing the drums just for the joy of it, even in my early 20s, I was never obsessed with like being this masterful musician, or I don't know, for want of a better word. And I don't know whether it probably is, maybe because it's the age of social media or just because I gotten older. In the last 5, 6 or 7 years, I've been far more kind of definitely thinking and obsessing over like trying to be a better musician. I think because I didn't do the music school thing. I didn't have that side of it. I'd always kind of come from the teaching side of things. And then I was aware that I was a much better teacher than I was a drummer. And so I really tried to, when I first went full time, really tried to work on getting better at the drums so that I could kind of go both of them at the same time. And I think that's always on my mind. And it's kind of odd because sometimes I even catch myself being like, but why? Like, why do you think, like, you've always been able, like, you've always got gigs, luckily you've always got like students. What's your problem, man? Why do you want more? Why do you just want to keep like being better at the drums? And it's a weird thing, I guess, because it's like there's the ambition's a good thing, right? You want to it drives you forward, but sometimes it's kind of a curse is a strong word, but like it is a weird thing that I guess it weighs on your mind that you're not going to have time to kind of be that better musician. So I guess I don't really necessarily have career things just at the moment. I've fulfilled quite a few of them in recent years, to be honest, which has been really nice and really lovely. So I probably am and I am a proper manifesting person, hence the mum, I want to talk about Harry Potter and play the drums one day, and it's just like tick tick done. Like I do often have things where I'm like, I would like to do that. I would like to play at Glastonbury. I've played at Glastonbury, great. Like and I kind of have those sorts of things. But I think in recent years, I've just sort of had this feeling of like, I want to be a better drummer. I want to move up a notch in. But it's a strange thing because it's so about how you feel about your own playing, and that's actually really quite tricky to overcome because you can never feel about your own playing the way that you feel when you watch somebody else. So you watch somebody else play and you'd be like, oh my God, it's incredible. But they're probably like, it's the same 6 bloody fills every night. And then, they probably feel exactly the same as you. And so I guess really my main ambition is really just to try and enjoy everything as much as possible and not let myself become overwhelmed, but really try to just enjoy the being a dad but still enjoy being a musician. I think that's probably my main ambition, I guess, initially, is I don't want to kind of fall into this trap where I was like, oh, I don't have any time to do this, or I used to be like this kind of thing. And it's difficult. I mean, it's interesting because I was thinking this, I have been teaching for like 20 years. And so I actually have an insane amount of experience of working with like young people, and I have worked with all different kinds of children, like from foster kids to underprivileged kids to overprivileged kids to, all different types of people and all different types of things. And I feel like that has actually really prepared me for parenthood in some ways. And obviously I've seen so many different types of parenting, and you can really tell because you can see when somebody comes in, whether like, have they practiced? How did they get that kid to practice? Did they basically pay them? Sometimes they pay them. They do. They're just like, I'll give you £6 a week if you play your drums 50 minutes a day, or so I've seen. So I do feel like I've had lots of things of like, okay, that's interesting. How did that play out? And all those sorts of different things. And so I guess it's kind of like just trying to maintain to be me, I guess, is the ambition, and to be joyful and feel the joy of being a parent, as well as not losing who I am on the drums. Having said that, I have like set up a whole practice pad kit at home and ordered a set of silencer cymbals so that I'm sort of like trying to go like, do you know the book like Atomic Habits? Like a kind of approach of that, where if you set things up in a place that's very easy and less barriers to get to, that when you have 5 minutes, it's there, rather than like, oh, I've got 10 minutes, but the studio is not in the same place as where I am. So
Amazing.
Sounds like you're very well prepared. I'm impressed. And you've read lots of books, it sounds like, as well.
Yes.
I listened to the audiobook, to be fair, of the Hypnobirth thing. And I've gotten very lucky. I've just mentioned the 2 books I've read that aren't Harry Potter. So, I've fucking read loads of books.
Thanks for listening to the Drummer Mamas podcast. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave us a 5-star rating because it makes us more visible to other listeners. And we really do appreciate any comments or reviews. It makes a difference. Thanks again, and see you next time.